Hi, my name is Jordan Cook. I'm a junior at Bel Air High School, and I'm a part of Voice to Equity. And today we're going to be talking about microaggressions in everyday life. There will be a Q&A at the end. If you can ask questions throughout the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end. So a lot of people ask, what is Voice to Equity? Voice to Equity is a countywide movement of student leaders committed to educating others within our respective communities and providing a safe space for everyone to speak their truths in order to promote equitable outcomes and futures for everyone.
Hi guys, my name is Leah, and I'm a sophomore at Bel Air High School, and I'll be presenting our session outcomes. So at the end of this session, in general, we want to create awareness surrounding the common occurrences of microaggressions, and we want to discover techniques to minimize the occurrences of microaggressions. And lastly, we also did present this PowerPoint to the faculty at Bel Air High School last year. So for this slide, I want you to take a 15-second kind of mental break to think about what your personal definition of microaggressions are, so that as we go through the PowerPoint, you can start to add to your knowledge of what you already think a microaggression is.
Hi everyone, my name is Maritza and I'm a sophomore at Bel Air High School. So before we go over our definition, just think to yourself as we're going over this one, if yours was anything like our definition we're going to go over. So a microaggression is a comment or action that subtly and often unconsciously or unintentionally expresses a prejudiced attitude toward a member of a marginalized group, racial minority, sexual minority, or someone with a disability. There are three types of microaggressions, and all three of these are seen in society today. And those three types are microassaults, microinsults, and microinvalidations. And we're going to talk more about those.
Hi, my name is Anastasia Andrews, and I'm a junior at Bel Air High School, and I'll be talking about microassaults. So whenever we get a picture of what we think racism is, one of the first things that comes to mind is KKK, an organization that is a hate group. And that's kind of what microassaults are. It's old-fashioned racism that is blatantly hurtful, either physically or verbally, against a group. And like I said, old-fashioned racism, verbal discrimination, and great examples are the Ku Klux Klan hood, noose, and Confederate flags on display.
Another example of a microaggression will include micro-insults. And some ways that we see micro-insults today in society is when someone conveys insensitivity or rude or demean an individual's identity or heritage. And one example of that includes asking a person of color how they're able to get a job.
Hi, my name is Joshua Merrick. I'm an 11th grader at Bel Air High School. And one of the final examples we have is micro-invalidations. So as you can see, it says exclude, nullify individuals' thoughts or feelings. And basically what these are stereotypes that might not exactly seem like an attack, but actually will exclude or invalidate someone and make them feel like an outsider or an other. One example that we have down here at the bottom is you speak English really well from not being from here. Or another example would be commenting on how someone is not like the other members of their race, essentially diminishing a person to their race, sex, or sexual orientation.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Blackburn, and I have the opportunity of working with all these wonderful students. And I'm going to ask you right now to take just a moment, and I want you to think of a time maybe when you have used one of these microaggressions, whether it is a micro assault, whether it is a micro insult, or is it a micro invalidation. So just take about 30 seconds or so and just think about maybe a time, because we all have done it at one time or another. And the first step to better understanding is acknowledging. So take a couple seconds, think about it. And let's now hear from our students. Okay, we're going to be doing a panel discussion where our students are going to be sharing with you experiences that they've had here at Bel Air High School. And we're going to start with Maritza.
Hi again, everyone. So I'm going to be sharing an experience of a senior that is not able to be here tonight, but we still wanted to share her experience. And before I read out loud what she wanted to share with us, I would just like to add that I have experienced the same thing. And I know that many other people have as well in this group. So this is just a message from all of us, but this is what we're going to read. As a person who hopes to go into the medical field one day, I have always pushed myself to be in the top classes, especially in math and science. Sometimes in those kinds of classes, I would be among 4 girls in a classroom full of boys. I, along with some of my classmates, have often felt looked down upon by my teachers in those higher math and science classes. I've experienced micro invalidations in the classroom, such as not getting asked questions and missing out on opportunities to participate and getting laughed at by my teacher when attempting to answer a question. While these may seem harmless or unintentional, it is extremely discouraging to be in the classroom, ready to learn, and have a teacher make you feel less than this because of your peers or your gender. I wanted to share this because I hope to make it clear that while microaggressions are often about race, they don't always have to be. No matter what the microaggression targets, they are all equally as harmful, and we must acknowledge when they are used and correct ourselves.
And now Anna is going to present her. And now Anastasia is going to share one of her experiences.
Hi, it's Anna again. And much like the last person that shared their story, I'm also a person that has always been really in love with STEM. And ever since a young age, I've been either in classes or in clubs surrounding STEM. And I've had many times when people have looked at me and said, "You can't do that because you're a girl." And the main thing that hurts the most is I know they didn't mean it necessarily as an insult, but in their mind saying, "Oh, you're a girl," was automatically an insult. I've literally had people put their hands in my face when I try to speak about my own knowledge or things that I have done and say, "There's no way you could have done this. You're just a little girl." And after a long time of hearing this over and over and over again, it gets normalized. And that is a huge problem because even when I would bring this to either my coaches or other people, it was so normalized that it just became regular to me. And that is something that can even be a microaggression in itself. Being a bystander to seeing somebody either using a microaggression and not saying something can be harmful in its own way. And another example of that I've experienced is at a school assembly, there was a student that was transgender. And there was somebody that was giving them micro insults verbally and purposely misgendering them, purposely dead naming them over and over and over again when this person was just trying to sit there and listen to the presentation. And afterwards, during the fact, I spoke to them and I said, "Hey, that's not cool. This person wants to be called this. It isn't up for debate. It's who they are. You shouldn't, what did they do to make you disrespect them so openly?" And in my mind, I didn't think this was a big deal. But afterwards, the student came up to me that was being assaulted and they started crying because they said that no one has ever spoken up for them before, that no one has ever stood up for them and made them feel validated because microaggressions are so normalized that when we see them, we're just put our heads down and walk away. So those are my experiences that I wanted to share with everyone so that way you can see that they do happen. Microaggressions happen every day. And if we don't normalize talking about it and normalize making sure that we end microaggressions, change will never happen.
And now junior Christine Sunday is going to share with us her experiences.
Personally, one experience that I've experienced of a microaggression was when it was during Black History Month, and we were asked by our teacher to write about an influential Black person and write an essay about it. And I chose to write my essay about Will Smith, while everyone wrote about for example, George Washington Carver, or the other basic influential Black people in our society. And during the writing of my essay, I normally I use bigger words in my vocabulary, and so I showed that in my essay, and I use words bigger words, I would say. And I turned my essay in, and my teacher, she held on to my flash drive that I saved the essay on. And after she reviewed it, she pulled me over to the side, and she was like, are you sure you wrote this? Are you sure your parents didn't write it? And I tried to convince her, and even my mom tried to convince her that it was an essay I wrote. And then afterwards, she told me that she would give me a 0 for it because the words that I use in my essay shouldn't be a part of my vocabulary. And after that, I just kind of I don't know. I still try to, I don't know, just I try to oh my god. Sorry. I still see these microaggressions across other friends and family members of just teachers or other faculties being oh, you shouldn't be using this words. And I think we should work towards stopping that in our school. Yeah.
And now Leah Wynn will present her experience.
So today I'll be sharing 2 examples of microaggressions that I faced in my personal life. And just now I've kind of realized how normalized I feel about them, even though they are clear microaggressions. So often, at least in my community of family and friends, I often get compliments about my speech, or talking more Caucasian, or talking more elegant versus talking in Ebonics. So it's kind of hard to explain, but due to the stereotype of Black individuals in this country, it kind of makes certain individuals think that's just how they normally talk. So when people give me compliments at first, it's like, oh, that was such a nice compliment. But in a sense, it could be seen as a microaggression. Also, it could be seen as kind of a backhanded compliment, because I work hard to kind of push the Black individual stereotype of just a loud, outspoken person, which is not in a nice way. I try to break free of that in a community where it's not as diverse. So, I mean, it's a nice thing to say, to compliment someone's speech, but it's also seen as kind of a negative. It's not a very nice thing to say, oh, why are you talking so white today? Or, whatever the compliment may be. So just acknowledging those kind of backhanded compliments is really important in our society today. This was an experience I had in middle school, at least in 8th grade. That was my first year living in America. And as being one of the only Black girls in my school, it was highly lacking diversity. But I always personal feeling, but I always felt constantly ostracized for being within my classroom when I used to speak out, and whether my teacher's asking me to, respond to a question, or it's just an innate response in me to laugh or just have an outgoing response. So But whenever I used to have that response or have that, innate laughter or, whatever I used to sound, stares and comments and weird looks by my classmates, and it felt very compressing, considering I'm the only person that looked like me in a classroom of everyone who didn't look like me. So it just made me feel more put to myself, and even though that's, a silent microaggression, it's not anyone's saying, it's still a very negative thing because, looks. So those are my two experiences.
And now Joshua is going to share with us his experiences and discuss toxic masculinity.
Hi, my name is Joshua. So as a white male, I can't speak exactly personally to the discrimination that has been mentioned previously, but something I did want to talk about that I personally see and experience at Beller High School is, as Ms. Blackburn said, toxic masculinity. So now, what this is, if you're unfamiliar, it's phrases such as man up, alpha male, or having the idea of boys can't cry or boys can't be emotional. And basically from a young age, boys are given the idea that they need to be strong and self-sufficient and lack emotions and not cry. And these are sexist ideas, obviously, because the other side of that is that women are weak and dependent and are too emotional. But another cause of this that is seen much later in life is it creates a very narrow idea from a young boy's mind of what it means to grow up to be a man. And this causes boys to end up feeling inadequate when they eventually can't reach this very narrow standard that has been set by society, which causes boys to feel the need to bully in school, causes them to have fragile egos, and causes domestic violence and high rates of suicide later in life. At our school, I have personally seen boys judged for having too feminine fashion or too feminine handwriting. I've heard teachers say things like, oh, I need a strong boy to help me carry these books, or seen the glorification of boys in gym class. And I played football from a young age, and I've seen boys screamed at for crying, simply whether they were hurt or whatever. And basically what this all leads to is a high amount of psychological trauma later in life. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but men are 3.5 times in the US, 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide than women because of the effects that these phrases and these mentalities have on boys from a young age. And a major takeaway that I wanted to express here is that, kind of as Maritza said, like these go, while it is very damaging to people of color and then also women, it isn't just those two groups, it is everyone. All of these phrases are happening to everyone, and everyone is being damaged by these harmful microaggressions.
And finally, we have Jordan to share her experiences.
Hi, so one thing that I've always faced was being bullied, and I faced it throughout elementary school, throughout middle school, and partially throughout high school, and I was predominantly bullied on wearing my natural hair. My natural hair is really long and coily, so because I was afraid, to wear it natural, I just decided to flat iron it. I would go to school flat iron it and go to school looking like that, to fit in. And one day, I believe in middle school, I mustered the courage to wear my natural hair to school. And that experience went horribly. Previously, I had already faced a lot of bullying, but that bullying had now doubled. I remember kids saying that my natural hair looked dirty and unkept and nappy. I remember kids, would talk about it and talk about me. I vividly remember some kids even going as far as to touching my natural hair. And some people really rough, I would put it in certain styles. I'll put it up in certain styles, and some kids would just take it out of the style or like just purposely touch it. And it really sucked. I also remember being late to class a few times because I was in the bathroom for so long trying to fix my hair and trying to put it back in the style that I previously had it in. So this really started in middle school and continued partly throughout high school. But to a girl who was still very young and vulnerable and was like perceptive to a lot of things, that changed the way that I looked at myself in the mirror for a very long time. And it was very hard to shake. So yeah, you know, could you imagine on a daily basis being put down for something that you cannot change, you know? So I also just want to say that if you are having trouble digesting, or if you don't believe what I said or what my peers before me have said about these experiences, these things that we're talking about are very real and they do happen. And then they've been happening for years within the education system. So yeah.
Okay, I'd like to thank all the students for sharing their experiences. This is tough to do, but that is what our goal of Voices of Equity is to do, is that we want to give students an opportunity to share, to be able to express, not to be afraid to tell people how they're feeling, to address microaggressions. So what we are doing in Bel Air High School, as well as Hartford County Public Schools, as Jordan mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, these students did this presentation last year, right before COVID broke out, to our faculty. And I cannot tell you how many teachers came up to me afterwards that they started to reflect on their own behaviors in the classroom. I know I personally try to make a conscientious effort to make sure that I am mindful in things that I say and I do. And that is, you know, that was one of the goals of the presentation, is for teachers to think about it, what is happening within their classrooms. We also want to avoid making those assumptions and labeling. As Josh was mentioning, we have a tendency, and when he said those words, you know I've been guilty of saying it, oh, I need a big strong guy to, you know, move these books right now. I've done that. But again, this is the first step, that now I know that and I recognize that, and that's what we're hoping our faculty is going to do to start to address this. We have been participating in professional development. It is a countywide initiative through Dr. Stanton and the Office of Cultural Equity. We are trying to foster an environment where we do have open communication. And being part of Voices of Equity at Bel Air High School, we are working along with some of the other high schools to create a county Voices of Equity, so that students can once again have this opportunity, a safe space to speak, as well as, you know, what can we do to move forward so that people understand and start to reflect on their own actions and their behaviors. And as many of these students have said, a lot of the experiences they had started way back in elementary school. And I know that we are working with some of our middle schools, and hopefully we'll work with some of our elementary schools to get this, our message and our program and our movement out. So these are some of the things that we are doing. Now, to the next slide, please. What can you do as parents? Again, the first step is addressing things that, you know, reflect on your own behavior. Think back to times when you have done things. And again, it's not to make you feel guilty, it's just to make you to start to recognize and to change your behavior. If you hear your child saying these things, stop them, just interrupt them. Just say, hey, what you're saying, you may not realize it, but it is a microaggression. Have open, honest conversations with them. You know, what do you mean by that? Why did you choose that word? Why did you, you know, want to say that particular thing? And just be honest and have those open, honest conversations. Learn, educate. That is the biggest thing that we want to do with Voices of Equity, is that we want to educate people so that they can understand that the behaviors that they may have been doing may not seem offensive to them, but may be offensive to someone else.
Hi, so what can you do? As a student, also a young person, I feel like the next three things I'm going to say are vital to ending microaggressions, and these are all things that adults can do. So firstly, recognize that microaggressions instances happen every day. Even if you personally might have not experienced a microaggression, that doesn't mean that other people haven't experienced it, you know. They are very normalized and they do happen very often. Secondly, encourage open discussion with your students. If you're a teacher, make sure that you are open with your students. Let your students know that they can come and talk to you and that your classroom is a safe space. And even aside from that, as a teacher, if you see something questionable or derogatory being said or done among students, do not just stay in the background and act oblivious to it, you know? Do not turn a blind eye at it, you know? Because if you do this, I'm sorry to say this, you might be indirectly adding to the problem, you know? So please speak up and say something, you know? And lastly, acknowledge when you use a microaggression. It all truly starts with awareness and acknowledgement, you know? And after you take those two little steps, that's when the change happens, so.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are still welcome to post in the question and answer. We are willing to take any questions that you may have, so feel free, take a moment if you do have something that you would like to ask myself or the students. We would love to hear from you. So just post it in the live event Q&A. We'll take a couple seconds with that. And we're going to turn it over to Jordan just to also tell you how to, while we're waiting for any questions, Jordan will share with us how your student can get involved with Voices of Equity at Bel Air High School.
You can just talk, you can just email someone, I'm pretty sure. You can email someone or talk to an adult, and I'm pretty sure that they will direct you to, you know, joining Voice of Equity for Bel Air. And if you do go to another school, which I don't think anyone from other schools are here, talk to an adult and they will direct you to joining your Voice of Equity at your school.
All right, so we do have our first question for Mrs. Blackburn to answer, and it is from Miss Hackett, and it asks, where is your safe space at Bel Air High School when a microaggression occurs? This is a great one.
Okay, I saw that question, and I think well, my classroom, of course, is a safe space, and I'm at C302 if we ever get back into the building, and when we get back into the building. But I think the students need to know that they need to make connections with their teachers. Our teachers are very open to this. We know that we have the counseling office. We have our school psychologist, Mr. Brooks. Our administrative staff is awesome in the sense that if a student feels that they need someone to talk to. So I think there are a lot of safe spaces, whether you're going to your teacher, whether you are going down to counseling, or going to the administration, there is a place for you to share your experiences.
Awesome. That is great information for our school community. And we do have another question that is, will there be any types of awareness training for students in the near future?
That is an excellent question. I can take this one as well. We are currently working with two of the other high schools, Hartford Tech and North Hartford, and we are doing a county Voices of Equity group. And one of our ultimate goals is to have a summit where students can come and we will be able to share with them our message and hopefully get them to be involved in the voices as well. So that is to be coming. So yes, this is our first step on sharing this information with students is through a summit that we're planning on doing in the next couple of months.
And I think that wraps up our questions for this evening.
Well, I will end it then. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank my wonderful students who have been incredible to share their stories. I thank all of you who have come to listen to us tonight. I'm reading some of the lovely comments that you have put in the Q&A. Thank you. Again, if you have a student that is interested in participating in Voices of Equity, feel free to email me at kellyblackburn@hcps.org, or you can reach out to the office, the administration, and they can share that information with me as well. So I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Have a wonderful evening and hope to hear from you all soon. Take care, everybody.